Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation. Today, my guest is Jack Schofield. He is a British triathlon photographer. Um, it it was honestly very helpful to talk to him today. Along the photographers have made a great impact on this show and on me. Makes me think that maybe it's an avenue that I could walk down one day. Because I've got the Photoshop skills, I can learn the Lightroom skills. It's I think it's a process that I can learn or at least make an attempt at. So, it's helpful for me to learn how they're doing it. And all these people are relatively new to this. Within the last, I'd say, 12 to 24 months of doing this. So, yeah, it's if I'm gonna make a move to it, maybe I take from their cue and start working at it now. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoy his interview.
Hey man, how you doing?
Good, you.
Yeah, good, thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't check the invite. I just put it in my calendar as 8 p.m. and then realized it was an hour later than it should have been.
No, man, that's fine. I mean, like, I just started baking banana bread. That's all. It's what I eat
Oh,
before
nice.
races. So I make it and then I freeze it, and then until it's race time, I bring it out.
Oh, that's really cool. Good idea.
Yeah. So as long as
But,
you wrap it in saran wrap and then foil, it's okay.
oh, nice. So you're racing soon, or?
Yeah, I'm supposed to. I mean, I'm supposed to race in the next week or two, but I'm gonna end up deferring. So I'm just gonna
Okay.
end up mashing that banana bread on my own for breakfast.
Yeah. Were you doing Roth at some stage?
I'm gonna be doing Roth next year. I
Oh,
got a
cool.
slot. I got a slot early. I'm like, wow, thank you. This is awesome. So I'm like definitely looking forward to it. It is not going to be cheap though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, from you guys, it's a long journey.
It's still cheaper than like for, British athletes to go to Kona. It's cheaper than that. I mean,
Yeah.
for two people, it's 5 grand for,
Oof.
but I'm going
Yeah.
with this company that's doing like Quest travel tours, and
Okay.
this way they'll handle my bike and everything, and I don't have to worry about flying it and
Yeah,
all that
nice.
stuff. And then we were gonna do another tour of Bohemia where we go to Munich and Prague. I've never been to
Oh,
Europe,
cool.
so I thought it would
You'll
be
love
cool.
it. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm not your typical American. I didn't vote
Yeah.
for the idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We were actually there. We were in Florida for Daytona, went just after the election. Um, and it was crazy. Yeah, like seeing all the like both different sides. 'Cause obviously we don't see a lot of it over here of like who's voting for who and that sort of thing. So yeah, Florida was wild.
Oh yeah, so you was that the PTO championship, the first one?
The first one, yeah.
Have you been back since?
Not to Daytona, no. I was out in Tulsa
Okay.
last year when it was like a big stacked field. And then I
That's
think the
not a good indicator of what America is like.
yeah,
Daytona and Tulsa are not that.
yeah, we were in Boulder for a little while, and that was quite nice. And yeah, I don't know when I've not been over there for a bit. We might come next year to do an Ironman. We'll see.
Well, I'd recommend Chattanooga, but I'm biased because I really love the city of Chattanooga.
Okay, yeah, that's obviously had a lot of races there, hasn't it? So
They've got a half, they've got a full, they've got some shorter stuff, they've got
yeah,
long distance
they've had
swims.
worlds twice, three times maybe, 70.3 worlds, haven't
Just
they?
once.
Oh, really? Just the once?
They should come back. Honestly, I love it
Okay.
more. It was better than St. George, but
Yeah. Okay.
it's called the scenic city for a reason. It's very
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh,
And
of course.
as a
I was.
photographer, you might like it because it is very. I mean, I'll drop you a couple of pictures that I took, but you know, it's got. I think is great. I would move
Yeah.
there, except
Awesome.
for it's too small of a city for me.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, I was in St. George. I completely forgot. I was like, I feel like I've been to the States recently, and yeah, I was there for the World Champs. So,
How was that for
um,
you?
yeah, amazing. It was my first World Championships as a photographer, so that was really cool. yeah, really enjoyed it. I was staying with some of the athletes, and they made life really easy for me. Yeah, it was nice to be on the other side. It was hectic. I worked real hard, which was good. And you forget as a photographer, like normally when I go to a race, there'll be like, one or two other photographers there that are working for the athletes or whatever. And in St. George, there must have been nearly 20 of us. So you forget like everyone is there. So which is both like pros and cons to that, less work floating around, but more people to collaborate with and work from. So yeah, I learned from. So yeah, it was cool.
Who were you there for? Were you there for specific athletes?
Yeah, mostly worked for Ruth Astle. So yeah, she's my main athlete, and I was with Kat Matthews. Obviously Kat has other photographers as well that work for her, but I was staying with Kat, and then doing a bit of work with like Christian Hogenhaug and Boris Stein, which was good fun. And then I just shot for a variety of people, like a Finella as well, Finella Langridge, do a bit of work for. And then I ended up doing some extra work for Laura Siddle, through one of their wheel sponsors, well, their wheel sponsor Parkour. So yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was good. And obviously Ruth and Kat went amazingly well, so that was really good to see.
Yeah.
Um,
Who pays you? The athletes themselves or their sponsors?
it varies job to job, like a mixture of there's no like right way of doing it. So generally I try and avoid charging the athletes if I can, but obviously I need to get paid. So a lot of the time the sponsors will put up a lot and the athletes will put up a little bit, or help me here and there. So between them it works out. And then some races, if I'm shooting for, like, we have a race series in the UK called Outlaw, and people like that, yeah, so Outlaw pay me themselves so that the athletes don't have to. Again, that's quite a good setup. They're very flexible with me, so yeah, really good to work for that kind of brand where the event covers the bill and the athletes get free for photography and videography. So that's really good. But yeah, and like when we go on training camp, sometimes we do it where the sponsors will send me on training camp to get some shots in, and sometimes we'll have it where like the athletes themselves will all chip in a little bit to have me there so they can use it for social media. So yeah, it depends on, like, each time it changes. So yeah.
So, where do you pay your taxes at when they pay you? Is it in the States or?
U Britain, yeah, UK. So I'm UK based business, so everything comes into pounds and then works from there.
Okay, great. So, all right, at St. George, were you mobile or did you just pick a spot?
Somewhere in between. So I had my bike myself, so I had my road bike. So I actually had my time trial bike. So, but I borrowed a gravel bike for the race day. I think that's why I feel like I was on my road bike, and so I was at Swim Start. We drove out to there because with the athlete, the pros, we could get quite close. So I had VIP for Swim Start, which was amazing. Kat sorted that out for me, and then Swim Exit, that helped. And then we moved to like 3 or 4 spots on the course. So I was right at the bottom of Snow Canyon on the entrance to the park. I was on the highway in a couple of places where, not the highway, that just the side of the road where we could get access. And then on the run course, I just went out on the gravel bike and got as much access as I could. Obviously, it's quite hard because you have to make sure that not in the way of the athletes. I wasn't working for Ironman, so you have to be careful on how close you can get and stuff. And also, because I work for specific athletes, I can't give them any external assistance. Obviously, that's then breach of the rules. So have to make sure I'm stationary if I'm shooting or far away, so that I'm not, we're not breaking the rules, but you need to make sure that from the outside it looks like that as well, so everyone can see that I'm in no way coaching the athletes I specifically work for. So
Yeah, you don't want them to get a penalty.
right, exactly, yeah. It's like the worst nightmare.
Well, I mean, at least you're going to definitely go to Finland next year because it's not all that far. It's probably a cheap flight.
Yeah, Finland's very close. Yeah.
That must be nice. I would love to go to Finland and race there, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I'll enter into the disabilities, like the physically challenged athlete slot, because I am disabled. But I mean, it's a lottery, and I won't get that. I mean,
Okay.
there's only 5 slots, and they're competing with I don't know how many, but it's a lot. So my
Yeah.
percentage is, If there's even 100, that's 5% chance.
Yeah,
If
it
there's
feels like there
500,
should
that
be.
means there's 1% chance.
Yeah, it feels like there should be more slots than that.
Holy shit, I actually did that math right. I have trouble with math after my
Oh,
brain
really?
injury.
That was spot on.
Yeah, that was all right. I gave myself a little bit of hand.
Yeah, good work.
So, man, how did you get into doing photography for triathletes? Did you start in some other area? And how old are you? You seem pretty young, like you haven't been doing this for that long.
Yes, I'm both of those things. I'm 28. So yeah, so I did architecture at uni or college, as you would call it.
Dude,
Um,
I did architecture too. I that's
there
what
you
my
go.
degree. I have a master's in it.
Okay, so I'm just a bare bachelor, so undergrad. Oh, it's
Save some
called,
pain. Good job.
yeah, Bachelor of Science here. And then so I did that for 4 years. Knew that it wasn't quite for me. I wanted to do something creative, but it wasn't architecture. I knew that. So saw out the degree and then went to just do some other things. Ended up working in a bike shop because obviously I was into, well, I say obviously, I was into triathlon and cycling at the time. I'm just an age grouper. I still race, love racing, but obviously not at the level of the athletes I work for, or some of the athletes I work for. And then, yeah, so I was in a bike shop, just doing a bit of like everything from customer service to working in the warehouse to marketing, so got involved there. Quite a small company with a big turnover. So they turn over like £10 million a year, which must be like, I don't know, $14 million. But there was only like 10 or 15 guys working at the company. So really small, which meant I could get stuck in. And then ended up, yeah, running the social media. And they said, or I said to them, the photos we're getting from brands, we're working with brands like Specialized and that sort of stuff, just aren't very good. They're not what we're looking for to sell products at the time. So I said to the owner, can you buy a camera and I'll try and take some pictures? Because obviously with an architecture background, I understood images. I could create them in Photoshop, use the software, but I couldn't take them in a camera. So he said, yeah, bought me a really cheap camera, bought the company a really cheap camera that I could use. And that was 3.5 years ago, probably 4 years ago now. So yeah, just like spiraled from there. And then in 20, no, it can only be 3 years ago. That was early 2019. And then in 2019, I went to 70.3 Worlds in Nice because I was racing on the Sunday and the women's race was the Saturday. So I took a few shots. I must have taken like 30 photos of the women's race and just gave them to a couple of friends. And one went to Imogen Simmons, who finished second that day, and she was the first person to use a shot from 226. I'd actually sold some like a month or so before as a different brand. But yeah, I'd only been in it 3 or 4 months at that point. So then start of 2020 was like, okay, cool, we'll see if I can do sports photography. And then obviously the world's hit by a pandemic. So the first triathlon I ever took photos at was Outlaw X, the PTO supported event in, I think it was mid-September 2020. So that was the first triathlon I ever went as a spectator. And then like must have been a few weeks later, I went out to Daytona and shot the PTO race there for one of the athletes. Or, well, I was working for Ruth, but then loads of athletes ended up using my photos. I managed to do a bit of work with the PTO. And since then, the last like 18 months has just been a whirlwind. Yeah, so I've only really been doing triathlon photography 18 months now, 2 years arguably, but I hadn't really been to any triathlons. So yeah, it's been a bit wild.
I have a friend who is a photographer. She's really good too. She does abstract expressionism, so she doesn't do
Oh, cool.
sports. And I
Okay.
booked a photo shoot with her because I'm like, I want something different. Right? I'm like, just do whatever you want. You get full, I'll give you
Yeah.
free reign, carte blanche. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I know what she charges, and for a photo shoot, it was like, it was like around between 600 and 700. What do you
Yeah.
do for a photo shoot? And I remind you, hers is like only 15 usable. We shot for 2 hours and it's like turned out to be 15 images.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting topic because I'm not from within the industry. I clash with some of the other photographers on this quite heavily. So I'm about the same. I'm 500 to 600 GBP a day, which is probably about the same in dollars. Except in a day, I'm turning out nearly 500 photos, and or a video.
I was talking about only 15 finished prints. Like she took a
Yeah,
ton
yeah,
of
I
them.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, yeah, and it depends on the end use there, right? Because if you're shooting for like that, like you want pictures on a wall or a magazine, you're going to get a lot less shots than if you just need it for social media. So yeah, there's loads of different ways of doing it, but yeah, we generally I obviously edit all my shots. I can take nearly 5,000 a day, and then put out anything from 300 to 500. So yeah, we get through a lot of content. I've been organizing all my content today, just because I've got a few days. They're quite few and far between when we get these days between jobs where everything is edited and handed in. So yeah, just organizing the shots that I've taken over the last 6 months. And since January the 1st, I've published, so not taken, like fully edited and sent to clients, 20,000 images as to 26.
Yeah, man. That's where you just bust out some Adderall and crank out some work.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we don't have access to it in the UK, so yeah, I wish I wish it was like that. But yeah, it's just the rate we have to turn over shots now, because it's all digital, is just bonkers. After races, I can be doing 3,000 images. Yeah, fully edited, handed over to sell or dish out to athletes. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, the amount we can get through. And that's the same. I do a little bit of wedding photography as well. And you can be 500 to 1,000 images for a wedding now, because it's so easy to send across those memories. And as a photographer, who am I to say, well, arguably, who am I to say like what the best images are? Because although I can tell you an image that is technically good, I can't tell you what someone else's memories are, and I can't tell you the people that are special to them. So everyone, that's what's quite cool about a job, I suppose. It's also subjective that an image I might love, you might like, well, I wouldn't choose that one. So selecting them and whittling them down gets so very hard very quickly.
Oh yeah, or you might have caught some kind of moment that you thought is kind of inane and irrelevant, and they might like it too.
Exactly. One of the best moments I've actually ever seen recently, or I was seeing in a triathlon, I missed because I am teaching myself how to use a camera still. Obviously, I'm much better now than when I started. Sometimes I panic a bit and I'm a bit fumbly with the camera, because I can see the image I want, but I can't necessarily get it in the camera. I shot the World Triathlon Series in Leeds last weekend or the weekend before, and just before the start of the men's race, Taylor Spivey picked one of the flowers off the bank and took it up to Vincent and gave it him as like a little gift. And I watched the whole thing happen, but just had the settings completely wrong in the camera. So kind of like, it was almost nice that I had to just watch the moment and not get it in the camera. But it was at the time frustrating that I didn't capture it.
Oh man, that's a bummer, because that's one of
Yeah,
those pictures that's like triathlon, but it's outside of triathlon. And I like
yeah.
triathlon pictures that show that people are human too.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's just about telling stories, right? Like our job is really to tell the stories of the people behind the sport. So, all athletes, and this is something I really have learned from working with a lot of the professionals. They aren't really that different to the age groupers. They go about life in just the same way. They're just, when it comes to training, they're way more like razor sharp onto the focus side of things. But yeah, and it's just our job to capture and tell those stories so that people can connect with them.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And honestly, you probably made the right decision, because in architecture, if you never had a chance to work in the field, you'd see that there really is no creativity.
Hmm.
Like in America, you've got zoning, you've got all these different types of laws, and
Yeah, it's the same here. So I did like while we were at college, uni for us, there was like two lots of 6 month placements. So I did manage to work in the industry and saw that quite quickly that it isn't very creative, it is very restrictive. And really, like, the jobs where they are creative are so few and far between that I'm very much like,
And they all leak. Like every
yeah,
one of Frank Gehry building leak.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So yeah, I'm very much like, I'm willing to put the work in if I think the end reward is enough. And in architecture, it wasn't for me, so I wanted to work at something where the end reward is high. And that's what I love about photography, is by capturing people's memories, it is very fulfilling and rewarding, and I can add a lot of value to people's journey. So that's, yeah, quite nice.
I don't know if the saying's universal, but a picture's worth 1,000 words. I
Yeah,
mean, say it
exactly.
over
Yeah,
here. I didn't know if it's over there.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you only work with stills, not with video.
No, I do a bit of video work as well.
Hmm.
I'm quite tentative. It has to be the right job, because I'm very aware that quite literally a video has got a lot of moving parts. So it's very hard to do a video very well. So I often take a bit of time to know that the jobs I take are right. A YouTube channel is very easy to do. I run a few YouTube channels. Like, I run Ruth Assel's YouTube channel entirely, Beth Potter. Fenella Langridge is quite small. I've done a bit of work on that. Andy Horsfall Turner, an up-and-coming British pro. So I've got my own YouTube channel as 226 that is quite dormant at the minute, but trying to do a bit more there. So I do video and understand video. We've done some like short films, I suppose you could call them, just like 3 to 4 minute pieces for bigger brands. Like, I'm working for a big bike brand at the minute, Factor. I can't really say too much about the shoot, but I've just done them a couple of short films that are really exciting and really cool. But as a in business, I suppose you have to be very honest with yourself on where your capabilities end. And I can't put together a documentary that could go live on the TV sort of thing. I don't have that skill set. I'm in the process of learning it, but and I love working with athletes to tell their story through video. But I'm there isn't a stills job that I wouldn't feel confident taking. I'm confident in my ability as a stills photographer. I still got a lot to learn in video, both shooting and editing. So yeah, I reckon maybe 20% of my work is probably video. But I definitely I'm still learning the ropes in that department.
What do you edit your photos and video in? I do my photos. I don't have access to Lightroom. So
Okay.
I was a pirate in architecture school.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of the people are around the world. So I stole out of the pirate bay. I got CS5, and that was the
Okay.
last edition of Photoshop and everything that wasn't subscription based.
Yeah.
So I'm still operating in stuff that is now 12 years old.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, you can get the Adobe have like a photographer's package that for us is like £10 a month. It's probably like $12 or something. It could even be $10. They usually like that. And that's really good. So yeah, I'm full Adobe now. I've always used Photoshop and Lightroom because I know Photoshop so well from, yeah, the days that I illegally had it as
putting
a
together
student.
boards and everything. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So through architecture school, we mostly use Photoshop. So and still am fairly familiar with Photoshop. So that's really helpful, if I need to draw out a background or something like that, make an image look completely different to how it started. Photoshop's really good. Or like when I'm shooting bikes, if I'm shooting like a custom frame or something like that, obviously now bike it's come full circle. So from working in the bike shop, I'm now providing images to the bike industry, which is quite cool. So yeah, when I'm shooting bikes, sometimes we're without a stand, so I find myself photoshopping out a stick or a helmet or a rock or whatever we've used to stand it up. So yeah, Lightroom and Photoshop for stills. Video, I'm Prem Pro, but I started in iMovie. We actually launched all the YouTube channels when I was back in iMovie a year. I think I left iMovie probably 12 months ago, and moved to Final Cut because that felt like iMovie, just a better quality version. So moved to Final Cut, and now I've moved across to Premiere Pro, mostly because it seems to be what everyone is doing, and it therefore makes work sharing easier if I want to share projects or ask for help and stuff. So yeah, I'm now Premiere Pro. But I would say that iMovie and Final Cut, like, they're great. I'm not definitely not a software snob in that I say you have to use this software. Like, you can really tell a good story in iMovie. It's a bit more difficult to do, but I think it's less about, and this is the same with cameras. I get most of my photos from quite a cheap point and shoot. I say cheap, cameras aren't cheap anyway, but relatively in the world of cameras and bikes, a cheap point and shoot Sony. It was about £800. I think you can pick one up now for like £500, which must be $600, $700. And I get loads of my content from that when I'm on the bike and stuff, and it's amazing. So yeah, I think camera wise and editing software wise, it's less about the kit you have and more about the story you can tell through the media. So, and I was glad I learned that early when I was shooting on a relatively bad camera, because it never held me back, or I never let it hold me back. So that was quite nice.
I learned video editing on DaVinci Resolve, because you got
Oh
to keep
yeah,
in mind when you got CS5. I tried designing my own stuff in After Effects, like my own animation, and it's just it's not compatible with any YouTube tutorials.
yeah.
There's just so much stuff I can't do that they can, and it was like, well, I'm just going to scrap this and do it in Resolve. And Premiere
Yeah,
Pro is also kind of primitive compared to DaVinci, since it's free
yeah,
software.
I've heard amazing things about DaVinci. Actually, some videographers that are way better than I am sent me some projects over recently, and they were all in DaVinci. But I'm just not familiar with it. And obviously, I'm now in this phase where to swap software is quite hard, because you have to commit to a project in it, and especially when clients are expecting deliverables. And I don't get a lot of time for like passion projects at the moment, especially midsummer when races
Mid
and
triathlon season, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's quite difficult to swap between software. So yeah, maybe in the future it's something I'll try as I develop as a videographer.
So what did you do over the winter? I mean, when you
Training
got your downtime?
training camp. Yeah, I was on training camp for like just under, I think it was like 48% of winter. So because of obviously we've had Brexit and the UK's left the European Union.
That was dumb.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that, idiots.
Yeah, you had your own stuff going on there while we had our own here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously I feel the same about that as you probably do. But it's it's now really hard for us to spend a lot of time in Europe, so we're
Well, I
only
mean, yeah,
allowed.
that made it really hard for you to get around, because before, you could go
Yeah,
anywhere
really hard.
in Europe without batting an eye. Now you're not in the
Now it's
EU anymore.
super difficult, and we have to count days. So 180 days before the current day, you can only have spent 89 of them in Europe. I think it's 90, but I'm not sure whether it's that 90 have to be in the UK or 89 in Europe. So give or take a day, we're only allowed 90 days. And I was in Europe for the 180 days of winter for 87 days. So I was maxed out on training camps, which was cool. I got to see some amazing places. But that's also the difficult side of the job, I suppose. Like, travel's great until you've done a lot of it, and then you just want to be at home, especially when of the 90 days or 91 days I spent in the UK, only 30 or 40 of them were spent here in Leeds. The rest I was up and down the country shooting for various people, brands, and that sort of thing. So yeah, through winter was good because we had training camps, but from the UK you have to travel to get good weather and good training. So
Oh yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Snatch before.
no.
Really? Oh man, there's a quote in the movie about England: bad food, worse weather.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's we have to import everything. I wish we
Yeah.
could import the weather as well, but we can't. We just have to leave. But yeah, didn't manage to create loads in the UK because a lot of the triathlon stuff there is turbo based, or there are some stories to tell. Like, I did a bit of work down in London because you can capture the city quite well in the rain, and that's not a problem. But Yeah, winter was difficult. It was obviously my first winter as a full-time triathlon photographer, because the year before we were in Daytona, and then the UK went into lockdown on January the 1st. So it was a bit, yeah, we couldn't do anything. Everyone was just at home on the turbo, that sort of things, indoor training, which a lot of people are familiar with, but it's not sexy for photos, that's for sure.
No, man, I've tried to get some of my own content, and it's like, this room sucks.
Yeah, yeah. Once you've done it once, you can't really make it look different the second time around.
No, people know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Um,
so where, I mean, all right, I know in the US where everybody does training camps at, but where do they do them at in Europe? I know Girona's a hot spot. Where else did you have to go?
yeah, Girona's really good. So we're obviously lucky in that Europe is near enough the same size as the US, so we have the similar, like, traveling about's not too difficult. So a lot of people go to the Canary Islands. So Lanzarote is quite a popular one. So I spent a week there. Lanzarote is amazing for triathlon training because everything is in one place. Like, you stay at the hotel, it's a 50-meter pool usually, or 25-meter pool, depending on where you stay. Ride from the door, and you can run from the door as well, obviously. The problem is it's really boring because it's quite a small island. So you can ride, it's like a lap of the island's 180k, which, if you're like midwinter as a solid Ironman athlete, you can definitely ride in 2 or 3 days. And obviously some people are just riding the lap in a day. So yeah, Lanzarote, Gran Canaria, Fuerteventura, they're the Canary Islands, Tenerife, so they're all quite good. They're nice and warm year round, so they're about 4.5 hour flight from the UK south. So they're like halfway, not halfway, but partway down Africa. So get good weather. You can usually guarantee it'll be sunny, but they get quite sandy as well. So not always great for training. But Girona is obviously the main place at the minute. That's an up and coming spot. I say up and coming, it's where everyone seems to be. We did our camp in February. We spent the whole of February in Calpe, which is really good. There are a lot of Grand Tour teams around there, Calpe, Altea, and the whole lead squad that I shoot for. There are a couple of photographers, but the side of the lead squad that I also shoot for go to a place called Polop, or Altea, which is just outside Calpe. So yeah, we went and stayed there. That was really cool. Where else is good? There are lots of sort of, they're the sort of main ones. The Canaries are best for weather at that time of year, but then generally people that are around. Mallorca obviously as well, very good. Balearic Islands. I spent a lot of time in Mallorca. It's one of my favorite places. Got some friends out there that makes dropping into training groups really easy. So yeah, Mallorca's beautiful as well. Create some amazing stuff over there. So we did sort of a couple of weeks there. I was with the Cat Matthews again, their training group with like Patrick Lang and people like that. So yeah, there's some good places around Europe through winter. The problem is, again, it can still be cold, especially Girona. It can still be wet and cold in winter.
Yeah, I saw that because in Jan's videos, he's always dressed up. He's bundled up and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that's
That's
because he's
how I
like
get my impressions
1%
of
body fat
Girona,
there.
mostly through Jan.
Yeah. Another good one to follow is his training partner Kyle Smith, the young guy that I'm sure he'll do some very special stuff in the future. He's a really nice lad.
Yeah, he was at the PTO whatchamacallit, whatever that thing was that they had at Samarin last year, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah, Colin Scott.
Yeah, that's the one. The one with
Yeah.
the bad the one with the bad footage.
Yeah, yeah, that'll do it. Yeah.
And the way they shot the bike is like, wait, we just completely ignored this, you know?
Yeah. Did you watch Sub 7, Sub 8? I thought that was very well put together.
The what?
Sub 7, Sub 8 with
Yeah, I was actually racing that day.
okay, go back and watch it on YouTube. It's worth a watch. The footage is amazing.
They did that at like a Formula One track, right?
I don't know if it was Formula One, but yeah, it was a car circuit. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was at like a Monza track or something.
Yeah. Like I think it was called like Leipzig Ring or something like that.
Leipzig.
Leipzig
It was
Ring,
in
yeah.
Germany.
Yeah, just north of Berlin or just south of Berlin.
Okay, so bone flat. Okay. Well, hey man, let me get you out of here on this. What do you plan on doing with it in the future? What's your aspirations for your photography business?
I'm not sure. So we've
You're gonna
actually
have to.
got,
Do you plan on expanding one day and bringing someone else into the fold?
yeah, definitely. So it's something I'm looking at doing at the minute. But I'm not actually bringing on a photographer or a videographer. I think I'm going to bring on a curator. So we've just released, or we're about to release our first book. I say we and our, so I'm the main photographer, videographer. I have like other people working with me in the periphery. Like I've got two good graphic designers that have been helping me out. I've got like some business mentors, another photography mentor. So while I'm currently kind of running the show, there are other people feeding into that. So yeah, so we've got a book coming out, 100 copies. So we did a walk in Scotland, like a hike that was 100 miles. So we did it over 5 days. So it's mostly a picture book. There's a little bit of narrative about what we found, some facts in there. So yeah, I'd quite like to explore printed media. I'd really like to also look into like a gallery space and that sort of thing. But in the immediate future, it'll just be bringing more high quality triathlon photography to more people. So yeah, videos, photos, trying to really tell those stories through digital media. And then as that expands, seeing how we can adapt that into different forms of media. So the dream business model is someone like Chris Burkard, who's obviously the adventure photographer with a full studio of, I don't know how many, 20, 30, 40 people, where we just tell stories in various different ways, books, films, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to explore that and my own skill set and adventure as much as possible. So this year I'm cycling from so I'm Leeds, Bradford. So cycling from Bradford to Barcelona, which is in miles, it must be 1,500 miles or 1,300 miles in 8 days. So see what I can create around that while I'm cycling and see if there's a possibility for more adventure and telling the story while I'm in the adventure. And yeah, I just want to create more media, tell more stories, and let people share some of the journey, I suppose.
I could tell the journey with photographs because of my background in architecture, but I'm just getting my feet wet with telling a story with a camera. And I've started to shoot little short films, like starting with a minute in length, just basically so I have one of my cars I have is a convertible, right?
Okay.
And I experimented. It's like, okay, I want to shoot loading the car with my bike and then driving out. And I've tried to figure out like how would I piece this together all into one thing using different camera angles, right? I
Yeah.
started off with me walking out, me opening the door. I would jump in to look really cool, but it's a
Yeah.
Miata, it's really small. But it's like, okay, then I want a picture of the ignition and then one from above where I want to turn the key and then my foot on the clutch. So it's like, yeah, I experimented like that, telling the story that way.
Yeah, there's so many different ways you can do it. Obviously, like I said earlier, there's no right or wrong way, and that really excites me. And yeah, long term, I'd also like to give more opportunities to people trying to get into photography, because what we see is like, if I would want to become a professional athlete, it's very clear how I do that. There are different ways of doing it, but there is a structure, and there isn't that for content creators. And obviously, the same with bikes and stuff. Cameras are quite expensive, so yeah, if I could give some opportunities to some people that can create cooler stuff than me, that would be quite nice.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, maybe one day we'll work together on something. Just kind
Yeah,
of
I'd love
blend our
that.
talents at some point.
Exactly. There's always room for a collaboration.
Maybe one day, maybe next year I'll see you at Roth if you want to come out and shoot with the big boys. Since
Yeah,
it's
well, we
such a
might
big
be.
field.
There's some rumors that we might be racing, but we'll see. I'm
Well,
trying
even if
to
you are racing, maybe I'll see you there and we'll say hi.
definitely. Yeah, we'll see how it pans out.
Okay, Jack. Thanks for the interview, man. Take it
No, thanks,
easy.
Eric.
I'll keep in
Andrew,
touch.
look after yourself. Bye bye.